I got a job. I was very lucky. I got a job in the philosophy library at the University of Chicago for $10 a week. It wasn't very much, but a lot of people that time didn't make much more than $500 a year. The only difficulty was it was not very much. So I lived in a basement where I had to face down a barricade of rats in order to get into the place where I slept. And that made me very rat conscious. And that was the secret of my connection with the black community, because the black community was also suffering from rat-infested housing. And that changed my life.
So I'm going to move along here. This next picture is of you and Jimmy. And I just thought it was a very nice picture, so included this. But maybe you could just tell people how you and Jimmy met.
I came to Detroit in 1953. And as I usually did when I moved into a city, I bought a car for $100. A Plymouth, a red Plymouth. And Jimmy didn't have a car, but we were belonged to the same organization. So I would drive him home, and he would sit as close to the door of the passenger seat as possible. And when people asked us how did we get that together, Jimmy would laugh and say, "Grace got me." And I think it's true, because I found in Jimmy a number of things. The African-American community has been able to survive over the years, over the centuries, because they believe that you can make a way out of no way. And Jimmy had that conviction deep in him. He also has a conviction that he, having lived in a very small town in Alabama and picked cotton, and then gone north to work in the Chrysler plant in Detroit, and then experienced automation, high-tech, that he had lived through 3 stages of human history: the agricultural stage, the industrial stage, and that the industrial stage was coming to an end, and that it was his responsibility as someone who embodied that history to begin projecting what the next stage would be like. And that's why I hope all of you will come to Detroit, because there are a lot of people who feel that way. It's a predominantly African-American town of people who come from the South, but it's not all African-American. Over the last few years, particularly because Scott was teaching at the University of Michigan, an increasing number of Asian Americans have come to the city. And they are they're not a lot, but they are a presence. And there is a sense of Detroit, of the future, and that this future is being created by a very diverse group of Americans. That we are united not by biology or by the color of our skins, but that we are united by vision. That we have a mission to create a new, to shape the world, let's say, with a new American dream.
Here's another picture of you and...
That's a picture I call kitchen politics. That's taken in our kitchen. And the man sitting at the table is Ted Griffin. He was the first black man elected to be vice president of Local 7, the Chrysler local in UAW.
So the next slide is on Malcolm and Martin. And in your book, The Next American Revolution, you have this chapter that is called "Let's Talk About Malcolm and Martin." So I just wanted to talk about Malcolm and Martin. And I think you're right to talk about how people historically have seen Martin Luther King as the peaceful, nonviolent leader and Malcolm as the by any means necessary, militant, and anti-white. But you talk about it differently and to talk about their own transformations, and I wanted to see if you could share a little bit about that.
Well, there's a chapter in my book, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm promoting, it's called Let's Talk About Martin and Malcolm. In 1982, 1 million people marched through Central Park calling for the end of nuclear arms. And that march is believed to have sparked the Moscow Spring that provoked Gorbachev to declare glasnost and perestroika, which led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. For that march, a black guy, a Polish guy, and I wrote a poem called We Are the Children of Martin and Malcolm. Black, white, yellow, red. Our right, our duty is to shake the world with a new dream. And that new dream is that we're not only going to transform our institutions, but we are going to transform ourselves. We are going to become a better human beings. We're going to show what the human race is capable of evolving into. We are going to recognize how the degree to which we also have been damaged by the culture of capitalism.
So this next picture is...
That picture is taken in China in 1984, when I made my first visit to China. When I was growing up, we talked about, as many sojourners did in that period, going back to China. I thought back to China was one word. And in 1984, I finally went back to China. And I found that the Chinese looked upon me not as Chinese, but as American. And I decided that my goal was back here, not in China.
This next picture, you did mention this at first a little bit, is assembly line workers at the Foxconn factory. So I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more about the situation in China, labor conditions, and recently Foxconn and some of these other
General
factories.
Electric and Apple are working Chinese people like dogs. I think we want to realize that the economic growth and the money that's being made, the huge export and then balance of trade between China and the United States is taking that place on the backs of mostly women workers.
Okay, so we're going to move along here. The next one is